Hi everybody, Blinky here. Today I'm here interviewing someone who you may have seen on the channel before if you've been following our Game Dude stuff. He is a owner of a store in New Westminster, which is called Gamedeals. And he also interviewed the man himself, Alexander4488. The store is still around and he's still the manager. I'm introducing to you Brian Hughes.
Hello. For the record, I'm not the manager. I'm the owner.
My bad.
It's all good. It's all good. It's been a while since I've been at the store. The staff at the store have done a really good job of, keeping everything together. And so I don't actually spend a lot of time at the store.
Oh, okay. So it's actually kind of funny. One of the reasons I reached out to you is I mistakenly referred to you as Brad in one of my videos, and I'm like, oh no, wait, it was Brian. So, and now I just fucked up the manager owner thing. So yeah. My memory's not the best all the time either. Let's just say.
I mean, people still assume that I'm at the store every day. And it's like, I haven't been at the store every day for a long time.
Yeah.
But people still think I'm there every day. And it's like, no. I've been doing other things.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I guess we could start this off with a few questions. If you're cool with that. So the first thing I want to go into before we really get into the Alex stuff is what were kind of the origins of Gamedeals? I remember seeing an interview that you did with a channel called Motherboard BC, I believe, where you said you started selling games at the flea market. So do you remember when you kind of started doing that? And was it the Vancouver flea market, first of all?
Yeah, it was the Vancouver flea market. And I believe Gamedeals opened in 2006. So it was about 2 years prior to the Vancouver flea market. I was also selling stuff on eBay back in the day, too. Mm-hmm. And then, so the flea market thing was doing pretty well, but it was 2 days a week. And those 2 days a week were really heavily dependent on the weather. If it was a rainy day, people just didn't go to the flea market. So at some point, I kind of realized, I need to open a store or stop because this isn't working. And then pulled everything together and opened the store. And it was very small when it first opened. Like it was, a couple flea market tables worth of stuff in a space that was way too big for it. And it took a lot of time to grow things.
Okay, so how long would you say you were at the flea market before you made the transition into a storefront?
I want to say 2 years. It might have been 3. It was 2 to 3 years.
Oh, okay, I see. And do you know exactly the date when kind of Gamedeals opened? And if I don't know if it's the specific date.
I believe the official first day was June 1st in 2006.
Okay, June 1st, 2006.
I believe that is officially the Gamedeals anniversary. I mean, we may have had like a soft opening of a couple days prior, but like officially it was June 1st.
Okay, and I guess when you opened the store, did you was it mostly your personal collection, or did you have friends contribute to that, or?
No, this was all the stuff from the flea market.
Oh, okay. So it was
basically I bought the flea market business from somebody else.
Oh, okay. So somebody was like running that before, and then you jumped in.
Yeah, like I jumped in. I was working for them at the time, and then they, some weird conversation led to, why don't you buy me out? And I'm like, okay. And then that just kind of went from there. And yeah, like it's tough because everyone expects that a video game store's origin story is always, I was a big collector and I collected games my whole life, and then I decided to turn it into a store. And it's like, that was the opposite of what my situation was.
But were you a big collector? And just in your
Not
personal
really,
stuff?
no.
Okay.
No, like I played games when I was younger. And then there was a weird gap somewhere in like late teenage years, and like when I first moved to Vancouver, there's a gap of about a decade where I really didn't play a lot of games. Like games were around, but they weren't a part of my life. And then I got back into them when I started at the flea market, and then started kind of rediscovering a lot of the older stuff. And filled in a lot of the gaming of all the time that I had missed.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people go through those phases where it's just like nonstop gaming and then nonstop no gaming and then back to gaming. And so I get that. I've been through that a few times in my life. So where are you from originally? So you said you moved to Vancouver.
Yeah, from Niagara Falls.
Oh, nice, cool. Yeah,
It has a pretty waterfall.
it sure does. Especially if you're watching it from the Canadian side. The American
Yeah.
view is nowhere near as good.
No, the American view is awful.
Yeah. I guess you kind of said that flea market wasn't really viable because it was 2 days a week, but would you kind of recommend that as a good starting point for people who want to like maybe open up a business? Do you think it's a good way to kind of get a pulse on how game selling works and stuff like that, or would you just say it's probably not worth it?
I mean, it really depends on what kind of business you're looking into. Like, I've been saying for a while that, getting into the game selling business is not a great option. Like most people get in and don't last more than a few years.
Yeah, that's very
Like
true. I've seen a lot of places come and go over the years,
yeah.
and yeah, and I don't think I've been in Vancouver as long as you have. I've been here like 10 years or so, but yeah, it does seem like a tricky thing, and I imagine like COVID even made that harder for a lot of people. You said like a lot of places come and go. What was your competition like, I guess, when you first started the store? Was there a lot of stuff around, or was, I don't know, there not really a whole lot to choose from in terms of the retro game scene?
I'm having a hard time remembering back there because I think I think an important thing is that it wasn't about the competition. It was mostly about like, you know, is having a business only open 2 days a week viable?
Hmm.
And then, having a space that's bigger that you can grow and you can be open 7 days a week. Like it felt like a better option. But
Okay.
there's a lot more risk. There's a lot more upfront investment. There's a lot more work.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people who are selling games are doing it kind of on the side. They're not doing it as their full-time thing. And doing it as their full-time thing, it's a totally different thing. Like you're starting an entire business.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I used to sell games on the side, and like it's a good supplemental income, but my God, I would never have been able to live off of that if I kept doing it. But I mean, yeah, it's just especially with now and like game prices have gone up, and I don't know, a lot of people are a lot less willing to buy certain things because of emulation and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's a very up and down roller coaster. I feel with like the retro game scene. I mean, you'll always have collectors. I feel, but even so, like you have to. Some of them are not willing to spend like $300 on a Dreamcast game or something like that.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, if you look at records, record stores exist and they're seeing a bit of a resurgence, but like, how many really can a city sustain? You know, like it's not that they're going to go away. It's just that, they're not as popular as they used to be. And even if you look at video games now, you're starting to see the big chains are getting out of physical media and they don't want to sell video games anymore. So what happens when the games of this era become the retro games? Like, I don't know. I don't want to be all doomer because I was a little bit doomer when the WiiWare like store launched.
Yeah.
Like I was at E3 when Nintendo announced their eShop, and I was like, "Well, this is bad. This is going to be
Oh.
really bad." And then pretty much every online store, dropped the ball so horribly that it's like, "Oh, okay, we're fine," you know. And then, but now I'm looking at it and I'm seeing the way that people are aging out and the trends that are going, and I don't know how much time is left in this industry. I don't know how many stores any particular city is going to be able to sustain in a decade from now, let alone 2 decades from now. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
But for now, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and yeah,
Yeah, for
not worrying
sure.
too much about what 10 years from now looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even predict that. I mean, like I guess another thing is like when you opened the store, did you initially think that it would still be open like nearly 20 years later? Did you think it would have that sort of longevity to it?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I did really get worried when official emulation became a thing. When Nintendo starts releasing all of their expensive games on their hardware for super cheap, I really thought that was the beginning of the end,
Hmm.
and it wasn't. And so I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Like, so much of this is so unpredictable. And then even when COVID hit, I was like, well, this is bad. And then it turned out to be okay. And I'm like, all right, okay, yeah, what's next?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so hard to predict these things. I don't know if I expected the store to be around this long. Now I'm expecting that the store will continue to exist for as long as the building it's in continues to exist. That's our current plan.
Okay. I mean, the building that it's in is in a SkyTrain, so I think that has a good long life to it.
And actually, I mean, okay, so they are planning to redevelop Columbia Station.
Oh, okay.
And there's a whole deep dive into, TransLink bought the property, they bought the empty lot next to it. Our building that we're in has heritage designation, but not heritage protection. There is potentially a plan to redevelop that whole block. Whether it's feasible or not, whether they decide to go ahead with it or not, who knows? But that's still like a decade out.
Yeah.
So at some point within the next 10 years, I will probably know whether or not that building is going to continue to exist or not and what my timeline is, and then we'll make decisions then, but that's still way down the road.
But actually, you mentioned going to E3, so which E3 was that?
I don't remember what year. I've been a bunch of years, and it used to be a lot of fun, but I couldn't tell you exactly what the years were. I know it was the year that Nintendo announced their eShop, because I remember sitting there when they announced it, and I was like, "Oh no, oh this is bad." And then I was there the year that Sony announced Twisted Metal on the PS3, because I was one of the first people to play it. That was really exciting. And then I don't know, there's a bunch of other fun stuff happened at E3. E3 was a lot of fun for that, 5 or 6 years in a row.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would have been awesome to go to that, and it's unfortunately not going to happen ever again. Yeah. But I guess that just goes to show how much the game industry is evolving and changing, because I think the Nintendo Direct kind of killed E3 indirectly, because they just they're like, hey, let's just do this on our own terms rather than buying like all the space to to do a show on somebody else's terms in America. So
yeah, the cost benefit analysis stopped adding up for everyone involved.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people followed suit with that. I guess going into back to 2006. So when the store opened up, and that would have been, I guess, probably around the first couple years that you were at E3. Do you remember if you went after the store opened up for the first time?
Yeah, it was after the store opened.
Okay. So Gamedeals is primarily, I'd say, a retro gaming store, but you do carry a lot of newer games in there too. Like there's a big Switch collection, and I don't have a PS5, so I don't look for that, but I think that there's stuff there for that, and also Series X. And
some of the new stuff, but it's the vast majority of it is retro.
Yeah. But at the same time, Gamedeals, I feel, was like, as a store, it seemed to be kind of like on the pulse of what was going on in the industry, just from like a more modern perspective, because you said like you were at E3, and I saw a video of you at another convention in, I believe it was Seattle, and so I guess when you kind of opened the store and you moved it from a flea market to a storefront, did you kind of look at, I guess, the online ecosystem and say, hey, this is kind of where retro gaming is getting a little bit more popular? Obviously the Angry Video Game Nerd was picking up around that time, and he brought a whole lot more attention to like those older games and stuff like that. So I don't know, did you kind of see where the internet was going, I guess, congruent to retro gaming, and did you try to maybe capitalize on that being in the store?
I think when we first opened, none of that was a consideration.
Okay.
We weren't really looking at YouTube. We weren't really looking at, I think the Angry Video Game Nerd, it's like we kind of knew of his existence, but none of us were really watching him on YouTube regularly or anything like that. We were much more focused on, getting everything up and running and being a viable business. Like it was years before we felt, I guess, comfortable as a business. So yeah, I mean, when we first opened, the YouTube thing definitely wasn't a thing. It wasn't until years later that we started getting more involved with the YouTube community, I guess.
Yeah, and what was, I guess, your first initial introduction or threshold into the YouTube community? If you could recall, like, what were, like, I guess, the steps that led to Gamedeals becoming more, I guess, involved in that?
I don't remember the order of when things happened. Like, I know there was a time where, we started talking to John over the Happy Console Gamer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the guys came in to do the Gamedeals series. And then, going to PAX and just meeting all these people that are, part of that community. And and then at some point we were like, hey, we should do our own YouTube channel. We should push this. And then we did that for a little while and then realized that, it was not bringing us joy. And then the other big thing is I think there was a brief period where we were trying to reach a more online audience because we were considering more getting into online sales.
Mm-hmm.
And then after about a year or two of online sales, we realized this is a massive waste of time and energy. So we just kind of said, okay, forget the online sales. We're focusing on local.
Yeah.
And and then just kind of stopped making the video content after that.
So, yeah, about that Gamedeals series. So, how did that come to be? Because I kind of knew about it for a while. I watched them kind of recently for the first time. And, what really stuck out to me when I watched them, like, first of all, like, the Screwattack logo is at the beginning of them. So, they were hosted on Screwattack. Was that correct?
Yeah, so they were supposed to launch on Screwattack during E3. And I was at E3 I think it was the Cheap Ass Gamer after party, and what's I'm Craig from Screw Attack was
Yeah.
there, and we were talking about it, and yeah, it like didn't end up launching until after E3 was over. And
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know why. I don't know what happened with that, but yeah, the, so I had almost nothing to do with that. The guys from I believe Disappointed People Productions, I think, they came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do a show. What are your thoughts?" And I was like, "That sounds like it could be cool. Show me the scripts." And they showed me the scripts, and I read them, and I was like, "You know what? This is pretty funny. Let's do it." And yeah, so they did it. They partnered with Screw Attack. It was the whole thing. I really had very little involvement other than appearing in I think the first and last episode briefly. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're also over the phone in one episode too. So I mean, you had a off-screen appearance, I guess. But yeah. So I saw. I guess was that at PAX Prime 2010 because that's when I kind of found that video where it's you and the Screw Attack guys hanging out. Well, not you, but like the Gamedeals guys and the Screw Attack guys hanging out. So was it maybe?
So we used to go to PAX every year, and we did that for about a decade. And it changed venues, and the crowd got larger, and it got to the point where a bunch of us from here, it got to a point where it became too expensive, and it became more of the same content, and it became less and less of our friends were going. So there were those, the first few years where we were going there and meeting people and, joining up with parties and things. And then there were a couple years where we were hosting big parties, and those were good. And then things just kind of slowly trickled off. So, like, I can't remember the exact years, but we went to PAX for about a decade before we kind of stopped going.
Okay. And I guess do you now go to any other conventions other than I've seen you guys at the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo, but beyond that, do you go to anything else?
So I run the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo.
Oh, whoa.
So, so
I,
I'm there, but you probably won't see me because my team will be running around getting everything done, and I'm going to be hiding in a corner, making sure nothing's on fire. Um, but yeah, so yeah, the Retro Gaming Expo, that's my show. The only other one that I go to regularly is the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which
okay.
is the biggest and best in North America, and I make the pilgrimage down every year.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've heard good things about the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I wish I knew that you ran the Vancouver one because I would have had so many more questions prepared about that. But yeah, when did that start coming about? Actually,
Oh, I can't remember if we're on our 10th or 11th show. And then because we missed 2 years during COVID,
yeah.
that gives you an idea of roughly how many years ago it's been. But yeah, we started at the Columbia Theater, which is now the House of Comedy, and then moved over to the Anvil Center. And now we've filled up every square foot of available space in the Anvil Center, and we can't grow the show any bigger than it already is. We can't fit any more people in the building. So we're just kind of running a fun show every year and having a good time.
Okay, that's awesome though. So I've been there about 3 years, and I'm gonna come again this year. But yeah, that's awesome. Like you've been doing a good job running this place. So
Yeah, I'm excited about this year. This year we've got the best music lineup we've ever had, and we're getting a massive presence from the Chilliwack Retro Computing Club. So there's going to be a ton of retro computer content, which is something that people really loved, but it was always limited to 6 to 8 tables in one little spot. Now they're taking over like a good chunk of the top floor.
sweet, yeah. I guess with Gamedeals kind of presence at its other conventions, is that kind of what led you to wanting to start the Retro Gaming Expo?
Yeah, it was. So I went to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo and had a great time. And I was like, this is amazing. Why do we not have this in Vancouver? And then I kind of came back to Vancouver and I looked around at the scene and the community and the people that were in it. And I'm like, we don't have this because no one is in a position to run this except maybe me. So I think I'm going to see if I can do this. And then, yeah, I called all the people, I pulled everything together and was like, and now we have a thing. And then we just keep doing it every year.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, Vancouver does have a pretty large retro game community, so I was kind of like surprised that more people than I know don't actually really go to the festival, or like they even know about it until I bring it up to them. For the amount of space you have a lot of like different areas. Like you have the floor on the bottom for selling, and then you have like the gaming area and the music area and all that stuff. So yeah, if you guys haven't been to the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo, you should definitely go.
Yeah, so one of the I don't know if it's an issue. It's a first world problem, but one of the issues that we're running into is, like I said, we can't fit any more people in the venue. So we don't really push the advertising a lot because our goal isn't to try to maximize attendance. Our
Yeah.
goal is to make sure that, the people that want to come to the show come to the show and have a good time. And we can't move to a bigger venue. We can't do multiple days. Like we are stuck where we are, and I don't want to say stuck because I love the venue and I love what we're doing. But like, there's no incentive to bring in fancy guests or advertise, in mass media and stuff to try to get more people to come. The goal now for our advertising is just remind people what day it is so they don't forget.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good plan. And don't worry if I advertise, because my YouTube channel isn't that big. So
No, it's all good. I don't mind the advertisement. I don't want to get to the point where, we have to pre-sell all of our tickets and then cap.
Yeah.
And then say, nope, that's it. Show sold out. People can't come. Like, so we've got a nice comfortable level of people that flow through the building throughout the day that, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And you have a few other, like, I guess, businesses from around the area that I guess come and sell stuff too. Some of them, like, they're just on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. I've seen, like, I forget the name of the person, but the person who does like the refrigerator magnets of all the different pixel arts and stuff like that. And then yeah, so like there's a good variety of different people there, and yeah, it seems like a very inclusive place for, I guess, the retro gaming community in Vancouver. It's kind of weird that there's only one convention that really happens around that, because I know there's a bunch of like anime and furry conventions going around Vancouver, and more power to them, but it's just that, the Retro Gaming Expo, it's kind of weird that it's kind of singular, and it is only one day and all that stuff.
Like, don't even get me started on the anime convention scene over the last 2 decades. That could be an entire 3-hour episode on its own. The history of that shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, part of it is, we want to keep it fun. We want to keep it tight. We don't want to burn people out. We have a good team, and part of it is, that keeping that team healthy and together and having a good time. And one of the big things, especially given like our venue and the size of the community here and stuff, is, you look at a thing like Fan Expo that's all about bringing in celebrities from other places. And, we often get people saying, bring in this YouTuber, bring in that YouTuber. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars flying them in from somewhere in the US just so that 20 of you can give a shit about them.
Yeah.
I'd rather partner with, the local Smash Brothers group, or the local musicians that play video game music, or, the local arcade. Like, I'd rather partner with the local people and have it be more of a community event.
Yeah, and that's a good mentality, I think. And it's kind of you brought up the arcade. I assume you're talking about Capital City.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that arcade kind of opening, I feel like really kind of centralized, having more of a community of people that have a place to go year round where they can play retro games and kind of have fun with each other and stuff like that. And so the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo, I feel, is like kind of like that kind of crowd, but on a larger scale. And it's yeah, it's really been successful, and I am glad that you kind of keep it local. And I mean, if somebody wants to like fly in from there, I mean that would be cool, I bet. But I don't know. It's just I do kind of like how centralized it is in a weird way.
Yeah, like we're not opposed to bringing in guests. It's just it needs to be somebody that we really want to bring in or who really wants to come to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not bringing in guests to sell more tickets. That's never the priority.
Yeah, exactly. It's just people who want to be there, and they would just be really happy to be there. And I think that's kind of it feels a lot more authentic than if you were just to be like, hey, can we get PewDiePie? Let's fly him in from Japan. And it's just like, yeah, it's a different kind of vibe that I get going to a place like that.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. More on that later, but I guess going back to more of the online presence that Gamedeals had. So when you talk about disappointed people, that company that kind of produced the Gamedeals series, I tried to look them up. I can't find any information about them. Like, so do you remember much of like how they got started and where they came from and how they got involved with Gamedeals specifically, as opposed to like any other store in the Vancouver area?
I don't remember much of that. I remember they came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do a thing." I bumped into one or two of them like within a year or so after that was all done, and they I guess have just gone off to do their own things. I'm not in touch with any of them, so I have no idea what any of them are doing right now.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask that question next. But watching that series, I found a few interesting things about it beyond Screwattack. Like there was also the theme song was by Game Jew or Jonathan Mann, who does that like song a day challenge or whatever. So, and then between that and Screwattack, and then you had like Happy Console Gamer and even Alex to an extent. So like I guess a lot of the stores or a lot of the people in the online scene seem to kind of be gravitating towards Gamedeals specifically, it seemed. And do you have any idea as to why that might have been?
I don't know. I mean, because we're around, because we know a lot of these people, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I know the thing with there's Game Jew. I can't remember his actual name.
Jonathan Mann.
Jonathan Mann. Okay, so I know him doing the theme song was just they reached out to him and said, "Hey, will you do this theme song?" And he's like, "Okay," and he just did it. And for a while, my staff had that as the ringtone on our phone at the store, and I was like, "No, you got to change that." But yeah, it's a lot of just because they were around and they were just people that we knew at the time.
You talked about talking to Craig. Did you talk to any of the other people at Screwattack? Like I saw Chad in that PAX thing, and I don't know. Did you talk to like Ben or Tom even?
I remember a bunch of them. A bunch of them were at one of our parties, but there were a lot of people there, so I don't know that I had any like meaningful conversations with any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I don't really know the Screwattack guys at all. I'm not friends with any of them.
Okay, so you just kind of like, in terms of the Gamedeals series, did you just kind of like sign off on things and just kind of approve like where it was going and the fact that they wanted to do it and Game Jew and going on to Screwattack? You were just kind of the approval guy in that situation,
yeah.
And actor.
I was mostly like, yeah, let me read the script. Okay, looks good, and I have a background in film too, so it's not like I'm coming at this with like no experience. So it was like, okay, you guys know what you're doing. You're planning this. You've got these partnerships. Yeah, let's do it. Sounds fun.
Great.
That was good.
So what is that background in film, actually, if you don't mind me asking?
I went to Vancouver Film School for the Film Foundation program, and then worked in the industry for a while in casting. I was a casting director for a couple years and did a little bit of production stuff. And then I did some of my own YouTube stuff or other video content before YouTube was even a thing. Okay. And then I got out of all that when I started doing like eBay and video games and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. When did you attend VFS, actually?
Oh, say, God, I don't remember the year.
It's all good. It's just kind of interesting because I actually also attended VFS for a couple years.
I want to say 1996.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Like, so is that why you initially moved to Vancouver?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
partly that, and partly because of the weather.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like we have the same origin story in that case, because I came to Vancouver because I was in VFS, and I also just didn't like the weather out back east and from PEI where I'm from. So
nice. Yeah.
So yeah, though it kind of sounds like we're two birds of the same feather, I guess. I don't know how that expression goes. So yeah, in terms of the Gamedeals series, it kind of ends on a note of finality where you fire all of the main characters, or at least the two that were actually working there. Was it supposed to be like a one season thing and one and done, or were they hoping to like pick it up for another season and then come back with a new story of them going into a different scenario?
So, there was a season 2 planned. I can't remember if I read all the scripts or if I just read the synopsis of each episode, but there was a season 2 planned. And it also ended with a level of finality. And I remember asking them questions like, okay, how are we coming back from this? And they're like, oh, this way. I'm like, okay, cool. And then at the end of season 2, I'm like, well, how are we coming back from this? And they're like, oh, we have this plan. And I'm like, God damn it. Okay. Like, they were ready to go. And then I don't know why they didn't pursue them. I don't know if they had any kind of financial agreement with Screwattack, and Screwattack decided not to, or if they just decided not to. But I know that there were scripts for season 2, and I looked them up like just today to see if I could find them, and I could not find the scripts.
Okay. Do you remember anything about them? Like, what was that second note of finality entailing, and or maybe anything else?
Okay. All right. So I guess I can probably spoil that. I don't remember exactly how they got back into the store. I think it was something like I was back working at the store, and then I was like, nope, forget this, and then I like hired them all back because I'm like, I'm out of here, and then they continued to screw around or whatever, and then the last episode ended with them blowing up the store.
Okay.
and then when I asked them, I'm like, well, how are you going to come back from this? And they're like, oh, we were hiding in the refrigerator, as like a reference to that Indiana Jones film.
Okay, that is really funny. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because like I know that series it came before Screwattack opened their own game store in, I believe, Texas, and I think that's when Pro Jared was still on Screwattack, and they had like a series I kind of remember of them in a game store. So I was kind of wondering if maybe the Gamedeals series was kind of a precursor to that, or inspired them to do the same thing, but with more like in-house control over their own narrative and stuff like that. I don't know if you could speculate or not.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so you have the Happy Console Gamer. Was he kind of the first YouTuber that you talked to, would you say?
One of them, yeah, probably.
Did he approach you about that initial interview? Because I saw an interview on his channel where he was at Gamedeals.
I don't remember if there was like an official interview or anything, but like he lives in the area. He like he was around, and we became acquaintances, maybe even friends for a little while. And yeah, hung out for years. So like there was a lot of talk and a lot of cross video production, and he was getting really deep into all of his video production, doing like his movie and all that stuff. So like there was a lot going on for a couple years there.
Okay, yeah. And are you still in contact with him?
I don't know. All of our lives have changed over the years, and people change and things happen, and now I'd say we're friendly acquaintances. Like we don't really hang out or anything.
Oh, okay.
He's got a kid. He's not really like deep in the community anymore. Like he's doing his own thing now, and I'm not really super involved with the store anymore. So, yeah. But like I still bump into them every once in a while. Like we live in the same place, so.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Because he's like, I don't know what his size was at the time, but like he's pretty big now. There was a few other people like Motherboard BC. I don't know if their channel really took off. Do you remember anything about them when they interviewed you?
No, no, could not could not recall a single thing about them.
Okay.
But that
Yeah.
just goes to show like that my memory is not great. That a lot of time has passed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the thing with Motherboard BC is that they didn't really have a whole lot of videos on their channel, so I was just kind of, and one of the only ones that is on their channel is an interview with you. So I was kind of like, okay, what is there a story there? Like, did they have other videos that they took down? But I guess you just don't remember.
I don't remember now.
Okay, so but a few people come to the store and they start interviewing you about the store, like Happy Console Gamer and Motherboard BC. Did that kind of happen before or after the Alex interview?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, because I'm just kind of wondering if, you got the idea to interview him from doing other interviews, or if it was the other way around.
No, I mean
Or
I'm not new to interviews. Like
yeah,
my whole life, I've been around the film industry.
yeah,
I'm
that's
well
true.
aware of the media. I've been in the news multiple times from childhood up till now. Like even recently, the news came in to interview us about the Last of Us 2 filming, and everyone's like, I don't want to be on camera. I'm like, I'll do it. This is not my first interview. Like every year at the gaming expo, someone comes to interview me. Like, yeah,
Okay.
none of that is new, and it's been ongoing forever.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that I'm not surprising you with this situation in that case.
No, not at all.
All right. Before I get into Alex, because I do have a lot to ask about him
Oh, I
naturally,
know.
but yeah. Before I get into that, I guess just could you see Gamedeals or even the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo? Could you see them having more of an online presence? Would you want that? Would you want a second series of would the Gamedeals show or like a different show about Gamedeals? And I don't know, would you be open to going down that path, or is that just something that you and the store and the expo are not really looking for? I guess with the expo, you kind of answered that, but
So, I mean, with the expo, we finally got a short, I guess, video trailer made last year. Um, this year, there's talk about streaming the main theater content.
mm-hmm,
I don't know how that's all going to play out because this is all just preliminary talk right now.
mm-hmm,
Um, I don't know what kind of online presence the show could really have, like, because I mean the Game Expo it's about the experience. It's about people being there and having fun with their friends doing the things they love. Making memories. Like that's the point of the show, and you don't get that same vibe from an online thing. Um, as far as the store goes, we're never opposed to being featured in content. I don't know if we would do an entire show about the store because like there's a lot of logistics around that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not like a priority.
mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, if somebody approached us with an idea, I'm always open to looking at it, and more likely to say yes than no. But it's not a thing that we are focusing on internally.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I do get that because like, I mean, it just sounds like you have a lot on your hands already with everything that you do, but it's kind of this thing where yeah, you don't get the same experience as actually being there when you see a lot of the show online or whatever, but there is kind of a communal experience that you can get the vibes from by seeing how that's like it's more focused on the Vancouver community and stuff like that, which I think is important, especially after COVID, to kind of bring more people out and together and all hold hands and sing Kumbaya or whatever. I do kind of see, especially with the Retro Gaming Expo, I do kind of see how that could have like a nice, I guess, space in the online community somewhere. And I don't know if you would agree or disagree with that, but
I don't know. I don't know that we need it. So the question then comes down to, what's the benefit of
yeah,
providing it?
exactly. Yeah, it's not something that I think is necessary, but I think that it could work in some capacity.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that's just my opinion.
I'm not opposed to it. I mean, if the right proposal came by, it was like, hey, here's the thing we want to do, and it's like, yep, that makes sense. Let's do it. But currently, that's not something that we're prioritizing.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into Alex, one more thing about the YouTube videos is that I saw a video called True Gamers, which was like you or
Yes.
well, not you, but somebody reciting a speech on the back of the Game Deals shirt. So first of all, are those shirts still available?
Those were a limited run. I can't remember if it was 50 or 150 shirts, and that is probably my favorite of all the shirts we've done.
Yeah.
And it is a reminder that we are long overdue to make new shirts. We need a new batch of shirts. But yeah, that was a fun shirt. That was a fun.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because with the shirts, first of all, the shirt actually predicted the whole Atari landfill thing, because it's like true gamers believe that the Atari landfill exists, and it did. So congratulations on that. But it's kind of interesting too. Like, if those shirts were limited run, it's kind of interesting seeing where they went, because I believe Game Dude had one, and I talked to Asa recently, Asalieri, and he said that you guys sent him one while he was still in Germany or something like that, and then there's a few others in the Gamedeals show itself. So it's kind of fun to trace where those shirts ended up.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I know at least 2 friends of mine that still have them. I don't even know if I have one. But yeah, I might have one, but it won't fit. So
okay.
Because I was much heavier back then. So yeah, if I have a shirt, it's gonna be like a 2XL or something, and I'd be swimming in it now. So.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, Asa did want me to ask you, or do you remember sending the shirt to Germany when he was there? And do you remember talking to him much?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Because he said he did talk to you guys a little bit, and I saw in the Alexander interview you used two Game Dude clips. One of them being, or not 2 Game Dude clips, 2 Asa clips where he was making fun of Game Dude. One being a parody, and the other when he was doing a Yahtzee impression. So I was just kind of wondering, like, I guess it was sort of a brief correspondence, but were you like a fan of Asa?
Probably, like, I wouldn't say fan, but like, I don't know. It was probably just a clip that I found at the time.
Yeah, that's fair, because with Alex being a customer and having so many interactions with Asa, I imagine he probably brought that up maybe once or twice while you were in the store or something.
No, that's probably what happened. Is he probably at some point was like, "Here's a link to my thing," and I probably watched it and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, now I see what's going on." Okay.
So speaking of which, I think it's time that we really delve into Mr. Batter himself, because.
Well, yeah, okay. So I guess I have some questions for you, and I don't know if they're related to going into the interview. So I guess my first question is why? Like, why are you focused on the Alexander 4488 situation to the extent that you are? I'm very curious about that.
That's a good question, and it's one that I've heard a lot. It's just like, what's the deal with Game Dude? And honestly, like, I watched a lot of the Game Dude stuff happen while it was live and happening, and I just saw like the extent of how weird it got, and it became this thing where he left the internet, nobody heard from him for a while, and all of his content kind of went underground, and it was really like difficult to find a lot of it. So I kind of made my original documentary. I don't know if you've seen it or if you've seen any of my content, but
I watched at least one of them. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I originally made that because there was the Mr. Medicare video out there, and I was like, Jim covered a lot of good points there, but there was just so much more that I remember about the situation and about how Alex conducted himself online that I really want to delve into, and I feel like a lot of other people haven't delved into that yet. So it was kind of like opportunity that I saw, and from there it was kind of like, okay, well, I can keep on top of things and keep people updated and go more into it because people really liked my original video. So that's kind of where a lot of that came from. And I find Alex to be an incredibly fascinating person, and I find him to be, whether it's intentional or not, I find him to be really funny too. So like, I do find him entertaining, and something about just that person really fascinated me. So let's just say.
Nice.
So you opened the store in June of 2006. Do you remember when Alex started coming in as a customer? Was it not long after you opened, or was it a few years?
I don't remember exactly when, but it was definitely like within the first few years.
Okay. So like, he kind of started up his YouTube account and his Game Dude show in, I'd say, 2008, and he was a customer there before that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would say at least a year before that.
Okay.
He was somebody who would come in regularly.
Okay. And I guess, what was your first impression of him, or how long did it kind of like take you to kind of realize the type of person he was, or if you could remember any of that?
It's tough because, he changed a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
When we first met him and he was coming to the store, he was just a regular customer, but he was also he was a flipper. He was somebody who, buys games from one place and tries to flip somewhere else to make a couple bucks in the middle.
Yeah.
That was like his thing. And I mean, lots of people do that, and I don't want to rag on people that do that, but he was one of those people. And sometimes those people can be frustrating to deal with when, they buy something for $20 and they bring it in and we offer them $15 for it and they're like, I got to get 25. And we're like, no. And then they're like, and then they just kind of get argumentative because, they got to make their $5 or whatever. And it's just like, so there was a while where, he would come in and annoyingly try to make deals with us that, weren't always good deals. Sometimes we'd be like, all right, okay, we can do that because we know somebody wants this game or whatever. But oftentimes it was just, okay, he's back. What does he want now? That kind of thing.
I just imagine him like seeing your store and like, oh, deals is in the title. This is the place to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he was selling at the flea market with Wahid for a while. I think I can't remember if it was Cloverdale or Abbotsford. I feel like it was Cloverdale. And so yeah, they had a table for a little while. And at that point, he wasn't coming into the store as much to flip video games because he was selling at the flea market with his buddy. And yeah, I don't know. He was just a guy who was around. We knew him. People were kind of indifferent about him mostly. So yeah.
So I guess when he came into the store, you were kind of like saying that you knew he was a flipper. So was there any kind of like, oh God, like I just wish that this wasn't the person in the store? If like you remember that, or was it very much like, was he like, I guess, nice when he was talking to you guys?
Oh yeah. No, he was nice. It was a lot of wasted time trying to negotiate over the $5 difference in like a couple of games that he found down the street at the Salvation Army. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it was a lot of that instead of, and I mean, sometimes he brought in good stuff and it was like, you know what, you got that for 10, we'll give you 20 because we know that it sells for 35, like something like that, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then other times, he'd be like, oh, but I paid this. And I'm like, well, then you made a mistake. What are you going to do, right? Like,
yeah.
So, but I mean, he was just a guy who came into the store, like, just is fine for a while. And then at some point he was like, oh, I'm starting this YouTube show. It's kind of like the Angry Video Game Nerd. But I'm like, all right, cool. You do you.
Yeah.
This has any impact on me, so.
Yeah, so with him... So one thing that I kind of notice about his behavior is that he's very much... He likes to just tell everybody about everything going on in his life. And so when he started coming... So did he... I guess he stopped kind of flipping and then he started coming in to tell you that, oh, I have this great idea for this show that's like the Angry Video Game Nerd. Do you kind of remember, I guess, the transition between that kind of era of him and then the next era being the YouTuber era?
I mean, I don't remember like there being a specific transition, and I don't remember like any of the specific conversations. But I definitely remember he was talking about, how he was getting into YouTube, and I think he bought a MacBook, and he was talking to me about editing because I had told him that I had done, video content and stuff like that. And for a little while, like there was actually a time where, and this is going way back to when the store wasn't super busy, I was actually like I had time to actually sit and like show him how to do editing, like basic editing in Final Cut. So there is a small part of me that's like, oh no, I created a monster, but
yeah,
like, he would have editing anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like, do you have like this feeling that if there wasn't a Game Deals, there wouldn't be a Game Dude?
No. He would have learned editing anyway. He would have done his own thing. It's just, but yeah, it just like at the time, I wouldn't say we were friends, but we were like friendly.
Okay.
acquaintances at the very least. Like we knew each other. Like he'd come into the store and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Blah, blah, blah. And then he'd tell me about video reviews he was doing, and I wasn't really paying close attention at the time. I think every once in a while he'd put out a video and we'd watch it and we'd laugh and we'd be like, that's dumb, but whatever.
Yeah. So with him, I guess coming in and then starting his content creation uh, journey. So, do you remember if that was before or after you guys had that whole Gamedeals show and that partnership with Screwattack? Did he kind of start before that?
I don't remember.
Okay, because I can kind of maybe see him seeing kind of this success that you were getting. I mean, like his main inspiration was Angry Video Game Nerd, and here you guys were featured on the same website that Angry Video Game Nerd was on. So like I could see that like sparking a lot of interest into just, I don't know, maybe pursuing that further. But
he was very into Angry Video Game
Nerd. Yeah, that's an understatement, but
yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I actually asked James about it one time.
Oh, okay. You've met James?
Yeah, we were hanging out with him at PAX one year, and I remember asking him, I'm like, so, like, Game Dude, Alexander, like, you know who he is, right? Like, and he's like, yeah. I was like, yeah. So, yeah, we had a very, very brief conversation about that, and it was kind of yeah, I know who he is. I don't want to officially comment on that. So I'm like, not wrong.
Yeah, okay. So there we go. Everybody, like, because there's a big mystery of like, oh, did he know about Alexander? Did he not? Because there's this kind of infamous clip where James is at Screwattack Gaming Convention 2020 or 2010, and then somebody asks him, "Hey, what do you think of Alexander 4488?" And he's like, "I don't know who that is." But then Alexander emails James, and then he's like, yeah, he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, it's because they didn't say Game Dude." So now we have first-hand source of somebody who talked to James. James is aware of who Game Dude is, or at least was. I don't know if he remembers.
It would not surprise me if no, you know what? He has to remember. There's no way he would not remember. But at the time, he might not have remembered because there was a lot going on, and and Game Dude was not the only random fan of James that sent him borderline unhinged messages.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of weirdness going on at the time, and it doesn't surprise me if James is like, I'm not entirely sure who you're talking about at the time, but if you asked him right now, he would probably be like, yeah, I remember that was a thing that happened in the past, and it's over, and I don't want to talk about it. Is probably what you'd get at it.
Yeah, when Alex kind of he read a few messages that he got from James. And like it's very like cordial, like the type of thing that you would see from James is just like keep it up and don't get discouraged, like that type of thing, like that, that just the type of friendly thing that James as a person is kind of known for. So yeah, like I can imagine that he probably saw Alex as just another fan who's like trying to do the same thing that James did, and I was gonna say put his own spin on it. I don't know. It's like, I mean, I guess he did put his own spin on it in a way. Yeah, like I'm assuming that James just probably doesn't want to discourage people, so he's probably he was very nice about Alexander. Like he probably wouldn't badmouth him or anything.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think he'd badmouth him, at least not publicly. And and Alexander 4488 was literally a number. Yeah. He was literally a number to him. He was some rando who was doing YouTube who was like, "Hey, encourage me," and he's like, "Okay." like they didn't know each other. They weren't friends. They didn't like chat on the phone or gossip or anything. Like, he reached out a couple of times. James sent some messages back. That was pretty much the entirety of their interaction.
Yeah. Do you know where the 4488 came from? Or was that just...
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, I was always kind of curious about that. I just assumed it was like random numbers that he picked. So you said Game Dude changed a lot over the years. And going from a flipper to, I guess, a YouTuber, did you kind of see that initial change start to happen? Did he kind of, I guess, become, I don't know, more or less boisterous than he was before or anything like that?
Yes. This is, okay, so the topic is going to get a little more sensitive now.
Okay.
In hindsight, at the time, it seemed like he was just getting super annoying. Looking back now and knowing how things progressed, it looks similar to mania.
Yeah.
Um, it's clear that this whole situation ended with a mental health crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not a doctor, but I've been around a lot of people that have struggled with mental health and bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Like there's a lot of overlap, and I don't know exactly where he might fall in that category, but you could definitely, in hindsight now, see the beginnings of a trend.
Yeah, for sure. And I believe in some of the content that just resurfaced not too long ago. I think that his mom said that he had autism at some point, and I've talked to a few other people with autism, and they think that he was definitely on the spectrum or something like that. The type of person he was, and then progressing into the YouTube sphere. Would you say that, I don't know, maybe that? Well, I mean, where it ended up, it definitely went to some like a mania thing. But I guess when you were starting out, was there any sort of initial impression that this was going to end up the way that it did?
No, I mean at the time, I mean okay, so yeah, in hindsight, I can see autism, I can see OCD, a little
Yeah.
narcissism in there. Like I can see all these, a little sprinkle of everything. Like diagnosing mental health is really weird. So I can see sprinklings of little things that you could look at, and in hindsight, yeah, you see them. But at the time, it was, people, I guess, maybe weren't as knowledgeable on these things and they weren't as sensitive to these things. And at the time, it was like, wow, this annoying guy is just getting more annoying, and he's doing weird, annoying things. And no one really gave it the thought. No one took two steps back and went, oh, this guy's like spiraling into a mental health crisis. Shit, someone should help him. And like, no one really saw that at the time that I'm aware of.
Yeah, from my perspective of somebody who was watching him from probably 2009 or so. When I first saw his videos, I was kind of the impression of like, okay, like he's doing this tribute to Angry Video Game Nerd. He's kind of like a Beatles cover band or something like that, and right down to the haircut. And so I didn't think much of it at first, but then when I came back to his channel and I saw like, oh, okay, all of his videos were deleted and re-uploaded, and he made minor changes to them, and he's getting into these fights with all these different YouTubers, and he's going onto people's pages and spamming their comment section. It's like it kind of like intrigued me in that regard, where it's like, oh, okay, there's something a little bit, I don't want to say off about him because I don't know, that seems a little bit judgmental, but there's just something about this guy who seems a little bit unique, let's just say.
Yeah, there were certain things that he was obsessed about. Like one of the things was ratings. He was very obsessed with ratings. So like he wouldn't touch a game that was rated under I think 80 or
Yeah.
85% on Metacritic or something. And then, all of his videos had to have, 5-star reviews and stuff, and anything less than that was unacceptable to him. And it was weird in the way he obsessed about the opinions of the consensus. And I remember there was a thing where, I don't want to get too deep into his personal life because I don't know a lot about it, but if I recall, his family was Jehovah's Witness, and um, I think four members of the family. My math may be wrong, but like four members of the family, three of them left, and he was the only one who decided that he wanted to still be Jehovah's Witness, in spite of the fact that the three family members were all like, "Nope, I'm out." And I remember saying something to him about, that's like a 25% rating. Like, why would you be involved with something that's a 25% rating? Like, So I found that really confusing.
That is the best response you could have given to him. But it's actually, I'm really glad that you brought that up because when we were looking through all of the information we found a comment from somebody on a forum who said that they knew the guy in high school and he was like a Jehovah's Witness and everybody thought he was annoying. And June, who I was like helping out with that video, he didn't put that in his video because we couldn't verify it. It just seemed like speculation. But from what it sounds like, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like he was actually a Jehovah's Witness, so that comment probably was accurate.
Yeah. I mean, I can verify it as much as, that's what he said to me.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't see why he would lie about that. But another
Yeah.
thing about with June the King's video about him, he kind of made that same comment where in Alex's mind, everything was either perfect or it was horrible. There was no in between. And with like the ratings that he would get on his videos, like they had to be 5 stars. Like if he got 4 stars, 3.5 stars, that wasn't good enough for him. Or like if you go into like he had this entire like over an hour long rant where he was just going through GameStop's website and just being like, "Oh, I hate every game that has like a 7 or lower. Every Mario game and every Zelda game needs to be at least a 9 out of 10." And it's just like he was a man of extremes, I would say, looking at a lot of his behavior.
Yeah, I mean, like, the autistic OCD, like there's a lot of behavior patterns in there for sure.
Yeah.
If we had been more knowledgeable about these things at the time, we probably would have spotted them.
Yeah. I'd say so too, because it's very, hindsight's 2020 on a lot of this stuff. And when I saw Alex like originally start on YouTube, and I was kind of like the same with everybody else. I was just laughing at how goofy it was, but 2013, 2014, when things started to get really, really dark, it was kind of like, oh, this is. I mean, I could see how the roots of who he was, how it led to this, but like, oh god, this was not where I was expecting this to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. But in terms of his earlier years, or just in YouTube in general, the Gamedeals interview is one where I've had a lot of people talk to me about it. As somebody who just covered a lot of his content, it seems to be one of the more popular videos surrounding Alexander's existence that I've come across. And so first of all, I kind of realized recently that it's not on the Gamedeals channel anymore. Was it like a conscious decision to take it down for some reason?
Yeah, I pulled it down within the last few weeks.
Okay.
Somebody made a comment on the video that said something like, "I can't believe this video is still up," blah blah blah, and I'm just like, you know what, you're right. And yeah, like I understand, videos exist on the internet. Those clips will exist forever, but I don't know that I need to host it anymore. And yeah, at the time, like I said, at the time, we really didn't know what level of mental health issue he was dealing with. At the time, it was he's kind of annoying. Everyone is dunking on him for fun, and he seems to be into it. We're looking for content for YouTube at the time, and it was like, here's an opportunity to put out some content that involves him that he's totally on board with. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And yeah, it was all good and fun at the time. And now looking back in a different light, I'm just like, yeah, no, that's got to come down. Like, I don't want to host that anymore.
Okay.
But it exists. It's out there. It's part of the history. You can't change history.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Would you say you regret doing the interview, or would you say that you're just kind of like not too comfortable with it being on your channel anymore?
It's more that I'm not comfortable with it being on my channel now, right? Like, I don't know. People talk about, I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into this, but like, people talk about things that happened in the past that, the standards of the past and the standards of today, and it's like, that was inappropriate. And it's like, yeah, but 20 years ago, it wasn't as inappropriate as it is now.
Yeah.
So, like at the time, we didn't know what was going on with him, and he was on board with, he seemed to think that people dunking on him was great for his brand. So it's like, okay, like we're playing along, we're part of the fun. And now looking back and seeing how everything developed and seeing how, things spiraled out of control, it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we just take that and put it away for a while.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, I do. It is been re-uploaded on a bunch of different channels like Game Dude Officials or Game Dude Library. So I mean, the interview is still out there for people who want to see it. And even with all that's being said and looking back on Alex's history, I mean, I do think that the interview is still entertaining. I think it's funny. I don't know if you kind of look back on it and cringe yourself, but I still think it's...
Yeah. I look back and parts of it are funny and parts of it are cringe. And yeah.
How did that initially come about, if you remember? Did like Game Dude come to you and was like, hey, I want you to interview me for YouTube, or did you kind of do that yourself? And
I think he just came into the store and he was talking about, like he was just talking about all the stuff on YouTube, and he was talking about all the, people making fun of him and stuff, and then I don't know. I can't remember if I said, hey, can I interview you? Or if he was like, hey, why don't you interview me? Like, I can't remember which of those happened. But at some point, it was like, okay, grab a camera. We're going to interview him. And then I told him straight off the bat, I'm like, I'm going to make you look stupid, right? And he's like, okay, no problem. I'm like, all right.
Okay.
As long as you're on board with this, then let's do it.
All right. So, yeah, that's one. That is another thing I was going to ask. Like, he was aware going in that there were going to be some comments that were like flung at him that were obviously making fun of him or like
for sure,
digging into him.
He was reveling in the attention during that time period.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like with Game Dude, I feel like there was kind of an aspect to him where like I do think he's funny, but he's funny in kind of like that Carl Pilkington or Spenny kind of way where it's just a bunch of people kind of push his buttons and then like he gets some really genuine reactions out of it, and that's I kind of feel like the big difference between him and the Angry Video Game Nerd. And to be fair, I do think that Alex probably should have gotten some mental health work and stuff like that, but I do kind of see I definitely think that he saw the appeal of that in a lot of the videos that were made about him, and he probably as much as like he would go into every single point on those videos or leave 100 comments, like there was a part of him that did kind of see the entertainment value in it, and he was playing into that a little bit.
I think he liked the attention.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, the attention, but I do think like there was a part of him where it was like he was kind of self-aware why it was funny, but at the same time I don't think he had really great control over it.
That's accurate.
Yeah. So with the Gamedeals interview, so a few things about that interview are really interesting because they reference certain parts of Alexander's history that I can't really find anymore, because the thing is he took down a lot of his old videos whenever he found a mistake, like any mistake, and or like a lot of the trolling that he got, like a lot of those users aren't really around anymore. So for example, like the Gamedeals interview, you talked to him about his re-edit of Bill and Ted's Excellent Video Game Adventure. He reviewed that without knowing it was based off of a movie. So the only point of reference I have for that even existing is the Gamedeals interview.
Really?
Yeah, because that video, I haven't been able to find it. I don't remember watching it. But like
I remember watching it. I remember him telling me. I remember. I think he told me first. I think he came into the store and he's like, "Yeah, I did a video reviewing Bill and Ted's, and someone was giving me shit because I didn't know who Rufus was, and I didn't know it was a movie." And I just looked at him like, "How the fuck did you not know this was based on a movie? Like, what is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And I gave him a really hard time over that.
Yeah, so it's and I think rightfully so, because it is such a glaring mistake, and it shows how little effort he was putting into the research of that particular review. But like even other stuff that he brought up too, like there's one question in the interview was like, rumor has it that you like to have sex with sheep. It's like that's not really surface level knowledge of Alexander, I would say. Like that's something that he would probably
I feel like it was within a week or two leading up to that when the Encyclopedia Dramatica page went up, or at least when I became aware of it.
Okay.
So it was definitely during that time that, we at the store were like, oh, look, this is a funny thing that happened about him. And we read the page, and that's where all these memes and stuff came up.
Yeah. Okay,
so that stuff was all fresh at the time.
Okay, so a lot of that I guess you were sourcing through Encyclopedia Dramatica as okay, for the points, but going further than that, there was Alex was he was very prominent for a while on a website called digitalpress.com, where he would get into like the forum and he would go through like he would argue with a bunch of different users, one of them later being exposed to be Mike Batey, who was dunking on him. And but what's interesting is going through that forum is that you guys or the Gamedeals had a thread, or they didn't have a thread. Sorry, they posted in Alexander's thread saying that, hey, we've done an interview with with Game Dude, and so I guess with that, like, were you also aware of his presence on other websites like Digital Press, or
Wait,
was?
hold on. Did I spam the Digipress forum with a link to that interview?
Uh,
Did I do that?
yeah, there is a link to the interview by the
Well,
Game Deals
okay.
account. Well, you
All
didn't
right.
spam it; you posted it once.
Okay. Well, I guess that's not too bad, and it's probably relevant to the thread, but still. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm well versed with Digipress. I've met the owner. Uh, I actually have Digipress used to put out price guides, like physical books that had prices in them, and I still have the original books. And it's funny to go through them and see like the rarity on these games and what the price was back in like the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't really spend a lot of time on their website. I don't spend a lot of time on their forums. I think I may have, traded a couple things, but no, I didn't like. I had no interest in following Alex around different
Okay.
websites or anything like that. No.
It was just kind of, yeah. I assume that like maybe he probably told you that, like, oh, I have this thread on Digital Press and I have this Encyclopedia Dramatica page. It was always stuff that he would bring up, I would assume.
Yeah, I can't remember if he brought it up or like I remember the Digipress forums, and I probably would have gone to them infrequently. So it's possible that I just went to the forums and saw that he had posted. I was like, oh, what's this?
Okay. I'm guessing you never really watched Alexander unless he brought up things that he wanted you to watch. Or did you like subscribe to him or like follow him in that regard just to see what he was up to when he wasn't at the store?
I can't remember if I mean I feel like I probably subscribed to him, but I don't remember because it's been so long. I must have subscribed to him.
Yeah. So
Because I must have seen the same videos that he uploaded at the time.
yeah. And in regards to something like that, did you ever ask him like, "Oh, why are you like reposting so much?" I mean, I know the Game Deals interview. You ask him a question. It was like, "Are you inspired by George Lucas because you read it so much?" So it's kind of a joke. But yeah, I guess were you also like, did he ever bring up the fact that he would delete and re-upload the videos, and were
Oh
you
yeah.
just kind of like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, no, he talked about that all the time, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I need to get, higher ratings, and it's not perfect." And I'm like, "So then make it perfect before you upload it." Like, yeah, no, the whole time I kept telling him repeatedly, like, "What you're doing is stupid. Stop doing that." And he didn't listen. He wanted to do his own thing, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know a single person who, other than him, who is behind that deleting and re-uploading strategy that he took. So I mean, that was something where, I mean, like you said in the interview, maybe George Lucas would be proud, but I don't know if anybody else would be proud.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Digital Press forum is one of the few surviving forums of Alexander's behavior on other websites because his posts are still up there. Because I know he was on that guy with the glasses. He like tried to get on there and he posted on their forums. I assume he was probably in the Screwattack forums too. But yeah, I don't know. Did he ever talk to you about his forum postings or the type of responses he would get?
No, not that I can remember.
Okay. And in terms of Screwattack, did he ever I don't know. Did he ever like come to you guys and he's like, "Hey, can you guys put in a good word for me? Can you get me on the website? Because you guys are on the website." Like, did he ever do anything like that?
I mean, it's possible, but I don't remember it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I could just imagine him.
It feels like something he'd say, but I
Yeah.
don't remember him specifically saying it. And
Okay.
I had literally no pull with Screwattack, so
Yeah, that's the thing. But I can see him trying to attempt something like that anyway. Another thing about Game Dude is his review of The Cat in the Hat. In the credits, he says that that game was donated to him by Game Deals. Do you remember anything about that? Like how that came to happen?
I don't remember that. But I mean that checks out. Like it's possible that we had an extra copy of The Cat in the Hat around, and it was probably worthless, and like it's possible that we were like, here, review this one, just because we were fucking around and bored that day.
Yeah, but I mean, that was enough incentive for him to not only review it, but review it in rhyme. So I think that like any sort of like leeway was like, oh, these guys are contributing to my show.
Now I'm wondering if that was our idea. If we were just like, here, do this one, but you have to do it as Dr. Seuss.
That would have been yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's ever commented on that. It just said that the game was donated, but I guess beyond that, do you remember any sort of direct involvement in his videos or anything like that?
No. He was doing his own thing, and he would talk to us about it, and sometimes it was entertaining and sometimes it was annoying. A lot of times it was just like, oh, guess who's here? You know? What's the drama now?
You know? Yeah. And do you kind of remember, so you talked about a bit about the transition from him going from Flipper to YouTuber. Do you kind of remember, I guess, the progression from him there in terms of his presence in the store and how he changed in that regard, even starting film school?
I think he started coming in a lot less when he started going to film school, probably because he was busy and had more occupying his time.
Yeah. Okay.
So at that point, I mean, because before when he was just doing the YouTube stuff, I think we'd probably see him at least twice a week, and then once he started film school, it was more, maybe once a month.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess from my assumption, it just became like less frequent, and then yeah, nothing at all.
Yeah, I think one of the last times we saw him, I can't remember if he introduced us to Elena, was it? Or if he just mentioned her. But I remember there was talk about her, and that was like right near the end of the last time that we saw him.
Okay, and that would have been when he was starting his relationship with Alana, would you say? Or was it like well underway at that point?
I think it was starting. Like I feel like I met her, but briefly. Like they came into the store and he like introduced me as if I was like one of his closest friends, and she was just kind of like, "Hey, like why am I here?" Like that was kind of the vibe I got, but I don't know if I'm misremembering
that. I'm like it's just so funny. Like if you think like if he introduced Alana like that, and then Alana would maybe go and watch the interview, and it's like, wait, what the fuck? This is not like, it doesn't. Not that you were like super like outwardly mean to him or anything, but like, it's just it just seemed like more of like a trolling thing, or you were prodding him a little bit, and then he was introducing you as like one of his closest friends.
I don't remember the exact timeline on that, but I don't think him and Alana, like I don't think their relationship lasted very long at all. Like I think a lot of their relationship was in his head long after it had, not been a thing.
Yeah, that does seem kind of accurate to me, and because I believe they started dating in 2010. Because it's actually one of the funniest parts of that interview, in my opinion, is when like when you ask him like the innocuous stuff, and then he goes off and it's like what kind of girl are you looking for? He's like, oh well, I want one who's nice, but they tend to be kind of fat, and then one who's hot, but they tend to be bitches. So you got to find one in the middle. It's like that's what I feel like the funniest parts of those interviews are, is like when you're not even trying to troll him, but then he comes up with something like that.
Yeah, that was always one of the interesting things about Alex, is that like he would put his own foot in his mouth. You could say anything to him, and he would make himself look foolish.
Yeah, and it's like, and another thing about that interview too is like, after he asks that question, it's like you have like a title card on that says, "What about plastic dolls from shitty games?" And that's like a reference to one of his earlier edits of the Barbie review, I believe, when he's like, "Oh, Barbie's kind of hot." And again, that's another thing. I only have the Gamedeals interview to reference that existed, but because like Alex would just
there's no backups of his Barbie review.
Not that edit of it, no.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, there are still versions of his Barbie review available, but not that one. Because he would like post like 45 different edits or something, and they would just go from there. So it's very and that's another big reason. Like I know you asked me at the beginning my fascination with Alex, and that's another part of the fascination with Alex is that no matter how much of this content has resurfaced, there's always going to be more that's just gone that's just not going to be around anymore because he would just delete and re-upload the video that often. And with Alex, there's just so much mystery surrounding what happened to him after the YouTube thing occurred. And I guess I assume you don't know, but would you have any sort of speculation on what became of him?
I don't know any more than what I know that you guys have already talked about
Okay.
and that you guys have researched. Like, I heard vague things about the court legal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I heard vague things about him going to Mexico. And then I watched, I think it was one of your videos or something where it went into detail on a lot of the stuff, and I'm like, okay, this kind of lines up with what I vaguely remember. Um, and yeah, I don't know what's happened to him. I hope that he's, you know, getting help and starting a new life somewhere else. I hope that he doesn't come back to YouTube and be all like, "Hey guys, I'm back," because that's not going to go well. Um, but also, I mean, I also know the reality of the mental health system, you know, how bad it is here, how much worse it is in America, and I don't expect it to be great in Mexico either. So, depending on where he is currently, you know, he could be on the streets. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
It would be interesting to find out and hear like what's become of him. But I mean, as far as I'm aware, he has not resurfaced anywhere around here. No one here has seen him or heard from him. And you guys know more about where he is than I do.
yeah. So the only thing that we were really able to verify is that he is still alive. We just don't know where. We don't know how he's doing. But it's just such an interesting, I guess, transition. It's like because there's a lot of people on YouTube like I don't know Chris Chan or even like more recent people like Boogie, where a lot of people are just making fun of them and they stay on the internet because they don't know how to deal with like logging off or anything like that. But with Alex, it's like I don't know, like there's like any sort of direction that we point in, it's like okay. I mean, he went from having this huge boisterous personality of like I don't know, just talking about all this stuff that happened with him and Alana and like all this trolling and stuff like that. He went from that to just being offline and gone. And I don't know if there's some sort of order in place or if he's doing that from his own volition, but it just seems that like it's such an interesting like I would like to know how or why he is or like how he's changed in these past few years and like what he would be like now if he would be a completely different person or what became of him. Like it's just and it's one of those things where it's like as long as we don't know, there's always going to be more to like talk about and speculate on when it comes to Game Dude, because he's for somebody who seemed so surface level at first, he's actually quite a mysterious figure.
So, yeah, watching some of the later videos with, you know, the dinosaurs and the ranting at the police officers down on Granville Street and some of the other more unhinged ramblings, um, really leads me to believe that there's some schizophrenia going on in there. And that leads me to predict that he is either very, very not doing well, or even if he is doing well, he's still very medicated and probably very disconnected from the world in general. So I don't know that there's a good outcome here where, you know, he went and got help and he got some meds and now he's doing great and he's living his best life in Cancun. Like I don't see that as being a viable option, because I feel like if that was the case, you know, and he was doing good, he'd send a message to some people and be like, "Hey guys, just wanted to let you know I'm doing fine." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's
and,
just
and when those kind of messages don't exist, it really makes me think that he is probably not doing well somewhere.
yeah. I mean that's the thing is too is like it seems like too hopeful in a way to just assume that he's doing well, but at the same time I'd love to believe that that is the outcome that he got. He would say like oh, I hate humanity. I just wish I would go to a forest and just live among animals. Like he said that type of thing in his later videos. He talked about also, like you were saying before, that he had a business with his friend selling games at the flea market. He actually in his Alana rants he talked about how he had a falling out with that friend. He had a falling out with a bunch of his other friends, and then from as far as we know, he just left the country or something like that. But I mean, I don't know. There's a good chance he's still even in Vancouver, but I feel like it just seems weird that he wouldn't at least pop into Gamedeals or something like that, like someplace he's been to before, and like just update people. Like there's just
No, if he was in Vancouver, somebody would have spotted him by now.
yeah, and like I mean, there have been people who have come to me saying like, "Oh, I saw him homeless on East Hastings." It's like, yeah, well, show me a picture and then I'll believe that. But it's just yeah, like a few people have said that he's in Vancouver. I kind of don't believe he is. I just feel like if he was, I mean, he'd probably be. I don't know. We'd probably have some sort of definitive proof by now.
Yeah. Like, if I remember correctly, he was headed to Mexico,
Yep.
and getting, down the coast is easy. Getting into Mexico, especially at the crossing in Tijuana, is easy. Like, you don't even realize you're crossing a border when you go in there. No one is stopping you. No one is checking anything. And then if he's in Mexico, it's possible that, coming back into the US might be an issue. Um, and if he's in Mexico, he could be literally anywhere. Like, nobody cares down there. He
Yeah.
could be working a side job at some cafe. He could be sitting on the beach. He could be doing literally anything down there.
Well, there wasn't a. He did come back and talk to a few people about a year after he went to Mexico, and he said that he went to Hong Kong at one point, and he was
Hmm.
in Hong Kong when he sent that message. Now, I don't know if he's still in Hong Kong. That's just where he was when he sent that message, or if he went back to Mexico, or if he went somewhere else. Like, it's
So
just
the thing that I find interesting about that is, like, going to Hong Kong is not an easy thing for
no, it's
somebody
not.
who is struggling with mental health issues, who doesn't necessarily have an up-to-date passport, who doesn't know how to go through the visa processes and stuff like that. So, you know, where does he get all the money to fly to Hong Kong? Like, there's a lot of this that's not quite adding up.
Yeah.
I can see him being in Mexico because it really is not that much effort to get from here to Mexico. Um, but leaving Mexico without without like stability is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of people do when they go to Mexico, they do just disappear. Like like it's not an uncommon thing to happen, or like whether it be they were killed, and like we said, I'm pretty sure Alex is still alive. That's a part of the fascination with Game Dude that a lot of people have to this day, is that this is the last after all everything blew up with like all the court documents and everything. And like I don't think he's like a wanted man in Vancouver, because some people have brought that up,
No.
that he would like they thought that he wouldn't come back to Vancouver because he'd be wanted by the police. It's like, no, that was 10 years ago. Alana dropped the case. I don't think that they'd be coming after him if he came back. But I do think that there's a good chance he's not back here for other reasons. Those being, if he just ended up somewhere and like you said, like the mental health scene in Mexico. I don't know how it is. I can't imagine it's great in Hong Kong, and I know it's not great. At least, especially 10 years ago, like a lot of that stuff happening at the time. I don't know if a lot of people could have really detected those even then. But it's like this thing where I would hope that he got therapy and he worked things out and he's like living a stable life and he's not coming back to YouTube on his own terms. But it's a huge mystery that we're all just trying to piece together and figure out. And I don't know if coming back to YouTube would necessarily be the healthiest thing for him, but it would be kind of an interesting thing if he just gave us an update or something, whether that be through a message or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's really no way of knowing. I mean, well, I say there's no way of knowing, but also, I mean, it is possible that technology is getting to the point where you can just have AI scrub the internet looking for images of him anywhere.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
we're not far away from finding images of him somewhere under his new, his new Facebook identity in Mexico. It's all in Spanish now. Like, can you imagine if this ends with, 5 years from now, we discover an entire YouTube channel full of Spanish retro video game reviews from El Gamo Dudo?
I always thought that it'd be funny if, like, since he's not on the internet anymore, if he's doing fine, it'd be cool if he like shaved his head and became like a Buddhist monk or something, or I guess a Jehovah's Witness monk or whatever the equivalent of that is. And
I'm
then
willing to I'm willing to put money on the fact that he's got a beard now.
oh yeah, I could believe that. It's just he probably yeah, I don't know. It's just there's just so much for somebody who wanted the attention and got the attention for so many years, and then now he's just so opposed to the attention. It's even if he was like not doing well or homeless or something like that. Like I just what's the reason he would not come back to YouTube? Like I could just imagine him going to like a public library wherever the hell he is and just messaging people and just keeping them updated just because that's how he used to roll. So
Yeah, see, this is why my instinct is that, he's not doing well wherever he is,
yeah,
because if he was doing well, he would be reaching out to somebody. He would be posting somewhere that, hey, I'm doing good, blah
yeah,
blah blah. But the fact that he's completely disconnected from everything, um, that tells me that he's probably not in a state where he can send those messages or reach out to people. So
yeah. And like some people have suggested maybe that he's like I don't think he's back in Vancouver, but maybe he's on sort of under some sort of order or something that he can't do that. And I don't know if he has a good relationship with his parents now because he said he didn't want to ever see them again back at the time. Did he ever talk about circumcision or his parents or anything when he came into the store? By the way,
I don't think so. I don't remember that being a topic of conversation. But I remember hearing about it, and this was probably after the fact. But yeah, hearing that he basically like disowned his family. He's like, I want nothing to do with them anymore. Well, all
yeah,
right.
it,
I mean, it's entirely possible that he's reconnected with them.
yeah,
Maybe he is doing okay, and he's reconnected with his family, and they're all telling him, stay off the internet. Do
yeah.
not, don't get back into that world. But I
And
don't know.
maybe even if he went to therapy or something, maybe his therapist would have told him like, or guided him in that direction. But so there, I don't know. I think there is there is hope for Alexander, but I don't know. There is also I don't know. I think he's either doing way better than he was doing, or he's doing way worse. I don't think that there's an in between where he's just doing the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna say if Alex is listening to this, send me an email. Let me know how you're doing.
Yeah.
No judgment, and I'll keep it to myself. But fire off an email. Let me know how you're doing.
Yeah. And again, if Alex is listening to this, I mean, I know I've talked about you a lot, but you always have. You're welcome to come onto my platform and say whatever the hell you want to say, or just talk to me personally. You can message me on Discord or do whatever you need to do. Because at the end of the day, I really don't want to see anything bad happen to him. I don't want
Yeah.
I don't want to believe that he's like in a really horrible place. But who knows? Like it's just I don't hate the guy or anything. I don't think, and from most people have told me like Asa or whatever, like nobody really wants to see, I don't know, him thrown in jail or like dead or anything like that. Like we all just hope the best for him.
Yeah, Alex was never a bad guy. Like he
Mhm.
was a good guy. He was very obsessed with the things he was doing, and he had a mental health break, and the relationship was part of that, and that's usually how it works. It's usually around that age, and it usually involves a relationship or something else going sideways right
Yeah,
in that formative time, and he spiraled and things got out of control, and our mental health care system was not good enough to pick up on that and be like, hey, let's deal with this while we can.
yeah,
So
exactly. And again, that's part of it too. Is like I can remember being younger and having relationships going sour and that just absolutely destroying me. It's just the only difference is I didn't broadcast it on a like global scale, nor did I like get into stalking charges or anything like that. But
yeah,
I think
I'm,
there's
I'm
a
fortunate. I'm fortunate that the people that I know over the years that have had these types of things happen to them, they weren't public figures.
Yeah.
You know, they just quietly dealt with their things, not in a way where, the world was like, what's going on?
Yeah, and with Alex, I guess, he had like those fallings out with his friends, his family, and Alana. There was very much like I felt like he felt YouTube was maybe the last place where he could really get all this stuff out. In reality, I think he probably should have found a therapist or something. But again, there was more of a stigma around that, and I don't know what the Jehovah's Witness kind of stance on that is, if they're all right with that, or but then again, I don't know how religious he was at the time in his early 20s.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, Game Dude, wherever you are, just we wish the best for you. I would say everybody at OK Fine Be That Way, and everybody who I've talked to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but to get back into the Gamedeals aspect of this and kind of wrap this up with the post Alexander stuff and the post like initial starting phases of the store, it's like, and I guess also with the Retro Gaming Expo, it's like, how do you feel the gaming community's really changed in Vancouver? Do you think that there's, I guess, more of a community now than there was when you were starting out? Or
Yeah, I would say there's definitely more of a community. There's less stores, but there's more of a community.
mm-hmm.
More people aren't necessarily buying games as much as they are enjoying them and enjoying the community. There's more clubs, there's more esports, there's more music, there's just more stuff happening in the community that is part of the retro gaming culture. Um, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean buying actual games.
Oh yeah, because like you're saying, the Capital City Arcade, and I've spoken to the owner of that place through emails a couple of times, and he's a really nice guy. There's also because I believe that I think you said at one point that Gamedeals does trades with like other stores in the area, or they did. So like, are you kind of friends with like the other retro game store owners or some of them?
Yeah, I mean, I know most of the store owners. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Um,
We're friendly. Like I don't like we're not like friends in the sense that we all hang out or anything, but like
that'd be
we're
kind of
friendly.
funny to just have like,
Yeah.
all these store owners just hanging out
I mean,
and
I mean, I have hung out with a few of them on a few random occasions,
yeah,
but it's not a usual thing. Like we're not deeply involved in each other's lives or anything.
yeah. I don't know. What do you think has kept Gamedeals alive, and then some other these stores? Because I know Press Start Video Games in New West has been around for a while too, and a few of the other stores. And there's even more like up and coming. There's a Play and Trade in like Vancouver, which opened in the past couple of years. So even with like the, I guess, digital era that we're living in, and the more focus to less physical media, there still seems to be like a pretty strong, even if you're not collecting video games, like there seems to be a pretty strong community of people who do care, and that just seems to kind of be expanding and getting bigger.
Well, I think it feels like it's actually getting smaller when it
Okay.
comes to the businesses because I've seen a lot of stores close and a lot of flea market vendors disappear.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't really want to get into, specific like gossip or speculation about any particular stores, how much they do or don't care, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But like, there's still people that like retro games, and I think a lot of it is as a lot of the older people age out and the trending of what's retro, keeps kind of sliding. Um, a lot of younger people are starting to get into it now as a hobby, mostly from YouTubers.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the YouTubers that are like, "Hey, check out how awesome this is," and they're watching YouTube and they're going, "Oh, that does look awesome," so they want to get into it. So like, if it wasn't for the YouTube retro gaming scene, I think the stores would be doing a lot worse. I think that's part of the reason why
Mm-hmm.
stores are still doing well.
Yeah, and I would say that even the Retro Gaming Expo has probably brought a lot of attention to the fact that there is kind of a bigger community in Vancouver that maybe a lot of people didn't know about, and that there are these stores, and it is kind of a communal thing rather than, you know, they're all just like at war with each other, or they're all just like they go do their own thing and they don't pay attention to each other. Like there is kind of, I guess, this social aspect of gaming, which you could argue has gotten better with the internet. You could argue has gotten worse because it's gotten less personal. But it's just this thing where it's in a ways it's gotten smaller, in a ways it's getting bigger. But because I was born in like '94, and a lot of my favorite games came out before I was even born, and now a lot of my favorite movies and TV shows too. So it's just like, I think there is going to be always a newer generation of people who are looking to older stuff and kind of enjoying that. And whether or not that means they have a full NES collection, it's just everybody experiences it in their own way.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to do too big of a deep dive into this, like when it comes to things like nostalgia, but like, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and I did not listen to 80s music in the 80s. I didn't like it. And now 80s music is like the core of my playlists.
Yeah.
So, and then you get the same thing with like 50s diners. You look at a 50s diner and people are like, yeah, it's got that 50s diner vibe. And you kind of feel nostalgic for it, but like you weren't there in the 50s.
Yeah.
You did not experience this. So, I feel like there's a lot of people, especially now, that have, nostalgic feelings for the 80s from things like Stranger Things, that they were not alive in the 80s, but they still have that attachment. I think that's kind of what we're seeing with retro video games, where it's no longer the people who grew up with them that are attached to them. It's the people who were exposed to the culture of it and became attached to that fandom, that culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a slightly different vibe. And I've been really trying to put my finger on the difference between the people who grew up with that nostalgia and the people who grew to love that fandom as a separate entity that are similar but not exactly the same.
Yeah, it's a thing where it's like a lot of people, whether they like lived through the '80s, and just as an example, like a lot of people probably saw like, oh well, like oh '80s was so cool, like it was all these different movies and like these video games were coming out. NES was coming a big thing. But it's like, oh yeah, we also forget like I don't know, there was Chernobyl, there was the thought of nuclear
Yeah.
war, like there's all these different horrible things, but
it was a horrible recession. It was corduroy and
yeah,
cigarette smoke.
exactly, and like there was, you know, cocaine and crack was everywhere, and it's just like, it's like we forget those aspects of the '80s, but we go in back and it's like, oh, Queen was releasing albums, like Mario Bros came out, like that's the stuff that a lot of people really gravitate towards, and just especially with the internet and everything, it's like it's so easy to much easier I feel to curate these different eras in time and seeing like all these different things that came out and the context in which they came out, and that's kind of like the thing where art helps keep a lot of that alive. It's a time capsule in a way, but it's a very good time capsule. And there's some people who go too far with it, and I also think that nostalgia can get out of hand. And but yeah, it's kind of a push and pull thing, I would say.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Do you personally have like a favorite era of like video gaming, or I don't know, anything?
Modern.
Modern? Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I played a lot of the retro games that I wanted to play, either when they came out or when I kind of went back and rediscovered a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I rediscovered a lot of them on platforms that weren't meant to be played on. Like I really properly played through Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy IX on the PSP.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of like I think Zelda 64 I played through on the DS. It's like there's a lot of things where it's like I played the games, not necessarily on the platform they came out on, but now I'm at the point where I'm mostly caught up on all the retro games that I've ever wanted to play, so I'm playing new stuff now.
Okay, cool.
although I use the term new loosely because some of them are a little bit older, but
So do you have like a favorite game or like a favorite series or a bunch of games?
so yeah, Fallout 76 has been the big one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've been playing it since beta, and it's play almost every day. And then a couple years ago, my wife started playing with me as well. So now like the two of us play together almost every day, and that's been big. And it's interesting because when it came out, there was a lot of controversy about it and people ragging on it. And I'm like, okay, it's a Bethesda game, so of course it's broken.
Yeah.
And it's still broken to this day. It's still like it's never working properly in some capacity. And then B, a lot of people complained that it wasn't what they thought it was. They expected it to be a PvP, and it was not at all. They expected it to be, like a normal single player Bethesda game or an MMO, and it was neither of those. It was a whole new experience that a lot of people weren't ready for, and it was not what most people wanted, but it was exactly what I wanted. So
Yeah.
it worked out really well, and the community is great, and it's a fun co-op game to fuck around with your friends playing, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a very much a yeah, I mean, I haven't played it myself, but I mean, I remember at the time a lot of people called it Fallout. Only 76 people like it, and then and over the years, like more people like it's gotten a lot bigger of a fan base and a following. So I guess yeah, that's pretty cool that it had kind of a redemption arc.
So what's interesting is a lot of people that have jumped in over the last few years, they're saying, "Oh, the game's good now," and it's like, well, I mean, it's always been good. It's just you didn't know what it was,
Yeah.
and yeah, they fixed some bugs, and there were some definite issues in the first few weeks of things that weren't, tuned well, and then there was, all the different eras of duping and legacy weapons, and like it's definitely had its roller coaster of rides, but part of the fun has been being there for all of those rides. Like the thing that I don't know if it bothers me, but like new players that jump into the game will never get to experience what the game was for its first year.
Mm-hmm.
Like that first year, because the whole point of the first year of the game is that we're the first vault that opens after the war. So you come out of that vault and everyone is dead. There were no public camps. There were no big events that like you could go days without seeing another human. And
No.
when you saw another player, your first instinct was to wave hello, and they waved hello back, and then you gave each other stuff. And you hung around with them for a little while because you were like, I don't know how long it'll be before I see another human.
Yeah.
And it was a very different experience. Whereas now it's, you're constantly around people, you're jumping from event to event, and it's like it's busier and there's more stuff to do. But that empty world, dark, depressing vibe, it's gone now. And I kind of wish more players, maybe had to play the first 20 hours of the game in that world before they get to join a server with everyone else.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to feel what it was like, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, but I mean, it is kind of an interesting. Like, I don't know if they would do like some another game within that kind of a style with Fallout, but I don't know. Maybe there could be like another opening that they would do where, yeah, it'd be more of a communal thing where, or less of a communal thing rather, where it's just like they're on their own and they're like wandering around trying to figure stuff out. Like, it's kind of like the original Zelda or even like Breath of the Wild in that regard, maybe.
Mm. Yeah, so other than that, I played probably 200 hours of Starfield, which I really enjoyed. But the biggest problem with Starfield is that once you run out of content, there's no more content.
Yeah.
So yeah, like people talk about how it's like, oh, Starfield's dying, and I'm like, it's not. It's just everyone played it. Everyone played the 200 hours and then put it down because
Yeah.
there was nothing left to do. And so now the big one we're jumping into is Helldivers 2,
Okay.
which is crazy fun, and it feels like it's got that same, PvE co-op fun vibe where the non-toxic players are all playing Helldivers right now.
Okay. That's cool. I'm actually not familiar with Helldivers. I don't even know anything about it, but yeah, it's cool
It's
that.
it's basically Starship Troopers the game.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah,
that's enticing.
you're fighting for democracy. You drop on a planet, you murder bugs, and then you get the hell out.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and so would you say you're more of a PC gamer or like a console?
I didn't used to be. I was more handheld, um, handheld and console, and then when my business needs changed and my MacBook eventually died, I realized I didn't need a laptop anymore. So I got a proper gaming PC that can do all of the things, including gaming. So now I'm gaming more on PC.
Oh, that's cool. Like I've always been more of a console gamer. I actually used to be a pretty big collector a few years ago, and then with COVID and all the prices went up, I was like, my goal was to really collect every single Nintendo 64 game because that's what one that I had the most games for, and I did it. I got every North American one anyway. And then after that, I was just kind of like, okay, I don't really need to be a collector anymore. I'm pretty happy with, just doing whatever and going on that direction. But I still haven't really gone the PC route, but a lot of people have recommended it.
Yeah. On that note of collectors, I did used to collect a little bit. I collected Zelda stuff.
Oh yeah.
I had like all the sealed Zelda games, and I had some super rare stuff like the was it the Zelda Twilight Princess trailer on the DS cartridge that was limited to I think 350 that was given away at a Nintendo press conference. Like I had some really
Oh,
rare fun stuff.
wow.
And then there came a point where I think I walked into a Hot Topic and there was a 3-pack of Zelda panties. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't buy this. I'm not buying this. I'm putting this on my shelf. And then that was that moment that I realized there will be an endless supply of Zelda merch for the rest of my life. And I'm always going to feel like I need to get everything. And and I can't, I don't want to. And
Yeah.
that's when I decided I was going to sell everything off. And I still have a few tiny pieces that are sentimental, but most of it's gone. I don't collect anything anymore. Now I just have, fun little trinkets for the stuff that I really like.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. I mean, I haven't gone the route of selling it all off yet, um, but yeah, I mean, I still have all those N64 games, but I don't know. Maybe there'll come a day where I want to part ways with them. I'm still not entirely sure on that yet, but I haven't really been, other than Switch games, I haven't really been buying any new games. But a big part of, I think, the fun of it when with going to like places like Gamedeals and stuff like that is you do have the memories of picking up things at certain stores as opposed to just buying them on eBay. I remember going to Gamedeals and like getting a boxed Harvest Moon on the Nintendo 64 that was in like perfect condition. And it's like that's not an easy thing to find, and I was so ecstatic when I found that. So it's really, I have kind of I do have memories of Gamedeals and like getting certain games there, and they are, yeah, it's very fun and significant in my mind.
And I also like I have memories of video game stores and stuff when I was a kid too. Like I remember I was playing Street Fighter 2 on Super Nintendo, and then I went to a game store and they had was it Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition or Turbo? No, it was Turbo Edition, I think it was. And and I was trying to convince my mother to let me buy that one. And I'm like, I could trade in this one for this one, and it's only going to be like a $20 or $30 difference or something like that. And she's like, well, what's the difference? The same game. I'm like, no, this one's faster, and you can play as the bosses.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't know how I convinced her to do it, but we did it. And to this day, Vega is my main.
Nice. Well done. It's like, yeah. Well, I was actually going to ask you about like some memories and stuff like that, but actually, I do want to know some memories of Gamedeals itself and you being an owner there, because I I saw an interview where you were talking about an incident where someone broke into the store and tried to steal an Xbox 360, and then the box was empty, and then he went to jail. Like he literally broke down the front window of the store, if I remember, and he was on the news or something. First off,
Yeah.
like, what can you tell me about that incident specifically?
So yeah, so that happened, I don't know, a year or two into us being there. And it was probably the best marketing we could have ever gotten because we had really good security footage. And I cut together a little video and put it online, and it caught the attention of like the local newspaper, which then caught the attention of Global News or CTV, I think. And they played the news clip um, 10 minutes before our Canucks playoff game in the finals, I think. So like everybody saw this news clip for like 2 years. It was like, hey, this is that store that got broken into that one time.
Oh yeah.
It was the whole thing. But yeah, so yeah, guy breaks in, steals some stuff, leaves, um, go through all the process with the police and everything. At some point, I think a few weeks later, somebody was looking at the case and they're looking at the footage and they're like, oh, I know this guy. He's in holding cell 3. And they like walk down to holding cell 3. He's like, hey, that's you. Okay, well, you're under arrest for this as well. And
Okay, so he was in jail for something else.
he was in jail for something else, yeah.
Okay.
And then yeah, it went to trial, and I guess there was some communication between the police and the lawyers and stuff, and I think there was like $1,000 deductible from the insurance, and he was trying to get clean, and he was trying to clean up his life, and he like sold a vehicle that he had back in Edmonton or something so that he could pay the deductible in hopes to get a shorter sentence, and had to go into court and testify and all this, and I think he ended up going to jail for I can't remember how long, and then yeah, and then eventually he got out of jail, and I don't know how long he stayed clean, but um, at some point later he died, and I think it was an overdose. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I kind of remember you saying that in the other interview that you did. I forget exactly. Oh, it was the Happy Console Gamer interview actually. I
Yeah,
got that pinned up.
somebody had sent me a message, and they're like, oh hey, this dude died, and I'm like, what? And I looked it up, and it was like, oh yeah, no, he died, and I don't remember giving the details on how he died, and then I was asking somebody about it, and they were like, oh yeah, no, he was breaking into places out in Maple Ridge and back on drugs and stuff, and so we just presumed that it was probably an overdose.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, I guess this is always something I kind of like to ask, just because I used to work in retail for many years and in the marijuana industry, no less. So I saw some crazy stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, like, do you have any, like, I guess more wacky game or wacky stories that happened beyond that one?
I mean, not in that kind of category.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. We had a lot of good memories at the store over the years. Like there was a while where we were all playing it was Dragon Quest IX on the DS, and that like post game content where you're all going around the same dungeon together. So we
yeah.
used to have meetups where we'd all get together and play that. And um, yeah, I don't know. It's just lots of good times over the years with the staff. Christmas potluck dinners and stuff, and
Nice.
you know, yeah, game deals, birthday parties with cake. Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of good times over the years.
So you said when you opened the store, it was kind of like a smaller venue. I remember in the Gamedeals series, the store seemed a lot bigger than what I remember it being when I was in there today. So, like, I guess, how has the store, I guess, changed in shape and size over the years?
Part of this is something we generally don't talk about anymore, but uh, yeah, the 2008 to 2010 recession, um, things things went in a trajectory where we had a ton of inventory and we were on a high and things were going really well, and we were like, hey, maybe we should, expand. And so we expanded the store into twice the size, into the space next to us. And at that time, we also opened a second store in Gastown. Um,
In
at
Gastown, wow.
Yeah, so very quickly the economy turned and things were not going well. And this is around the same time that Blockbuster shut down and Rogers Video shut down. And I remember having a conversation about, what do I do with one of the distributors? And he was like, do you think Blockbuster wanted to shut down all the stores? Do you think Rogers wanted to shut down all their stores? No, they're doing what they have to do to survive. So he's like, do what you got to do to survive. And yeah, so we had to make some really tough decisions. And we decided to kill the Gastown store, kill all of our franchising plans, and cut the store in half and go back to a smaller footprint with a more manageable overhead. And yeah, and it was rough for a year or two there, and then we came out of the recession stronger than ever. A lot of people didn't make it through that recession, and
Yeah.
we're kind of seeing that happen right now, where a lot of businesses are struggling. Especially after COVID and with the economy tanking and all the SIVA loans coming due, and like there are a lot of businesses that didn't survive and or are what they're referring to as zombie businesses, where they're still alive but they're not making any money and they have all of this debt now that they have to pay that they're never going to be able to repay. So they're limping along, but they're basically dead already.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're starting to see a lot more of them shutting down. And the more the other stores shut down, the more it hurts the other stores in the area, and it's happening everywhere, and it's a whole thing. So we're definitely at a point where it's like we have too much inventory, so maybe we can run some sales, but we are not expanding
Yeah.
because that's a mistake we made, like you know back in 2008 2010 area.
Yeah. That's fair. And how long did that Gastown store stay open for?
6 months.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it was a really short period of time then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, Gamedeals, it's lasted through all of that. I mean, it lasted through the recession, it lasted through COVID. It's kind of funny because I work in the YouTube sphere, and a lot of the stuff that's was around when Gamedeals was around, like Game Dude or even Screwattack, like that stuff's gone, but Gamedeals has outlasted them. So it's like, I mean, Screwattack changed into Death Battle, and so like different things have happened, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's just for what you would, what a lot of people would see as kind of a small footnote in like the online YouTube community. It's like the actual store around that has outlasted a lot of the YouTubers that were more famous than it back in the day. So it's kind of a thing where, yeah, it just feels like Gamedeals. I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but it just seems like it's been able to survive a lot. And, it's a great location, first of all. I think that plays a huge part of it. And you do have a really great selection and prices. But, yeah, it's just, in a lot of ways, even through the hard times, it seems like you guys have been really lucky.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Like, it's like I said, we're not going anywhere. We're not struggling. We're doing better than we should in an industry that probably shouldn't exist. Like we're doing okay.
Yeah.
Given the world we live in now, the fact that we're still putting digital games on plastic discs in plastic cases, wrapped in plastic, and then burning fossil fuels to transport it around the world just so people can put it on a shelf and be like, look what I own. Like, it seems ridiculous currently. So I don't know what this is going to look like a decade from now or 2 decades from now. But our goal is to, hold on to the retro stuff and keep that culture alive as long as we can. And as far as the physical store goes, as long as that building is standing, we're going to be there. That's our goal.
Yeah.
Once that building is not standing, then we'll talk about whether there's a future for the store after that or
not. Which, there very well might be. And I guess, like, and I will say this, and I'm not just saying this because I'm interviewing you, but Gamedeals is one of, I think, the better game stores within the Vancouver area. And I've been to a lot of different stores, and I've seen, I'm not going to name names, but I've seen some pretty shady stuff go on at a few places. And I guess with also, without you naming names, like, what would you say is like some good business ethics that would go into like owning a store like this? Like, what would you say are some of the primary differences between a good gaming store or a bad gaming store, if you could like narrow that down?
I don't know that I want to get deep into that.
Okay. You're not comfortable answering.
Because when you say without naming names, like the moment I start giving examples, people are gonna be like, I know who he's talking about. So,
all right.
But like, I don't know. I got to give a lot of the credit to the staff.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're distracted, sometimes they're busy, sometimes they aren't giving customers the full attention that they deserve, but they're friendly and they're helpful and they're there when people ask them. And, they're doing a great job of keeping everything organized and making sure all the prices are right and, helping people. Like, they're very good at it. And a lot of stores don't have that. A lot of stores, have somebody there who's been there a long time, who's like super jaded and angry, and like it's a bad vibe.
Yeah.
So trying to keep a good vibe is part of it. And prices, right? Like the prices have to be they have to be what people expect the prices to be.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to just give away stuff. It's like if somebody comes in the store being like, "Hey, do you have a copy of Chrono Trigger for $50?" Like, it's a difference between, like reasonable, like competitive, but you're not trying to like.
So the important thing to know is we don't control the prices.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the market controls the prices. So we have to sell at the price point that the market dictates. If we sell too cheap, then resellers will buy from us and flip them somewhere else. And if we sell too expensive, then people won't buy it. So we don't control the prices. We control the spread somewhat, but even then, if we offer too low, people won't sell it to us. If we offer too much, then we don't make enough money to survive. So, like, a lot of people, who come in and are like, the prices are so cheap or the prices are the worst. It's like, we don't control any of that.
Yeah.
Like, we can sway the waves a little bit, but at the end of the day, like, the market decides what these games are worth.
Yeah, and I've been to a few places, again, not going to name names, but I've been to a few different stores where like they hike the prices up for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times what they're generally going for. And I talked to the staff there. It's like, are you nuts? Like, I mean, I don't say that obviously outwardly, but it's like, there's no way that I'm paying this much where I can literally get the same thing full in box with a manual on eBay for like $50 less or something like that. So,
yeah.
Or the worst was where I went to one place and they just right in front of me, like they're just like, "Let me check the price," and they'll look it up on eBay, and it's just there's something so frustrating about that too, because then he's just like, even then the guy was like, "Oh, 60, maybe 65. I'd say 65." It's like, well, I'm not going to take this unless you say 60 because that's what you just said. So it's just, if you're that indecisive about it, I'm just not going to deal with you. So I've never had any of those kind of experiences at Gamedeals, thankfully.
No, the only time you'll get that at our store is if it's something that hasn't been processed yet, like something that was just traded in that they haven't priced yet, and it's like, I really want to buy that. It's like, all right, let me look it up. Let me figure out what it's priced at.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say that, like, just from an ethics standpoint, Gamedeals is doing very well for itself, and it's like, and again,
I'll say that. I'll say this is a big one. During COVID, there were a few stores in the Lower Mainland that were outright violating all of the COVID protocols.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not going to name names, but there were definitely a few stores that it's like, oh, okay, so none of y'all are wearing masks in here, and there's no limitation. So all the legal things that were imposed on us, you're just not doing any of them. Cool. All right. And I don't want to get into a conversation about, whether it was right or wrong or whatever. It was just like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had stores that I walked into that really just smelled like they were all smoking weed in the store. And I'm like, if that's the vibe you want in here, that's your vibe. But like, children are going to want to come in here and shop. So,
and that's what my store smelled like. But I worked in the weed industry, so I think I'm all right with that. Yep. And I guess I was going to end on this, but I think you kind of answered it before. It's like, would you recommend somebody getting into like the retro game like selling business, or even if you don't recommend them necessarily starting up their own store? Like, I don't know, do you kind of recommend like even a communal experience like the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo? Like, would you, I don't know, be very would you say that, start up your own convention, start up your own store, or like, I don't know, what would your advice be on that?
So I've had other businesses over the years that aren't related to this. Like I opened and created the escape room that's next door to the store. I've launched different brands. I've launched different websites. Like I've done a ton of other stuff outside of this. And so the advice that I would give is don't turn your hobby into a job, whatever that might be. Your job needs to be separate from your hobby, but do something that brings you joy and is also going to be profitable.
Yeah.
Like if, I did have a moment many years ago where I looked at all the different things that I had going on and I said, okay, anything that isn't bringing me money or joy, ideally both, is gone. I'm not doing it anymore. And I eliminated a bunch of things out of my life and then focused on the ones that were making me happy and helping me survive. And yeah, so that would be my advice: is find things that you do enjoy or will bring you joy, and things that are actually viable businesses. Because a lot of people that open businesses, they do it because they're like, this is a thing I love, this is my hobby, this is my passion, and they open a business and they have no viable business plan, or they do it in a way that isn't viable because they haven't actually gone and crunched the numbers and figured it all out, and they miss the business side of it.
Yeah.
And then, or they get into a business and then they realize that it doesn't make them happy, it just makes them miserable. And it's like, you could be miserable at a job and then clock out at 5.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, why put yourself through so much more stress when you could already be miserable? So
yeah, so it doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, make sure that it's something that you will be happy doing on a day-to-day basis, and that the business model is sound.
Mm-hmm.
That's my advice.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice. And it sounds like you've been a real entrepreneur, even more so than I thought when I first started this interview. So it's like, yeah, it's
I've been self-employed since I was 22.
Nice. Yeah, not a lot of people can say that. I mean, I'm kind of self-employed now. I mean, I don't really have a I'm not exactly making bank or anything, but like I do different things that are stuff that I would does make me happy, and that is kind of the same advice that I would give to some people, even though I don't feel like I'm in the position to give advice to anybody. But it's just whatever makes you happy and you can make a living off of it. Just that's what's worth doing, rather than putting yourself through something that's just gonna make you just really jaded and think horribly of the world.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, the world's got enough of that. Like, life is too short. Step one is make sure you can survive. Step two is make sure that you are enjoying life. And step three is find a way to combine the two to enjoy it better.
Yeah. There we go. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So, I guess before we go, do you have anything you want to plug, like the store or the Retro Game Expo or anything?
Yeah, I mean, come to the store. The expo this year is June 22nd, 2024. If you're listening to this after, it's, you know, just check the store website or the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo website, and yeah, you'll figure out when the show is. It's usually in June, but depending on how climate change goes, we may pull it back into the spring.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
I mean, there was one year where it was one of the hottest days of the year, and Anvil Center was supposed to be a cooling shelter, and instead we just packed it full of people.
Yeah.
So, when the expo is there during a day when it's supposed to be a cooling center, it's like we need to really consider what time of year we run the show moving forward. And so we're doing June this year, and this year will probably be the hottest summer on record. And depending on how this year goes, next year is going to be even hotter. So we may change the month slightly, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I guess bottom line is probably the best way to follow on social media, like Facebook or Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram are usually the best. Or if you go to the website, a quick Google search for Retro Gaming Expo or Gamedeals will get you to our websites, and then yeah, all the information will be linked from there.
Yeah, and would you say the Gaming Expo has expanded significantly? Because the 3 years I've been there, they weren't consecutive years, but I was there, and it just seems like the crowds get a little bit bigger in some regards, and there's even more. I mean, like you said, the space is totally full, but
Yeah,
a lot of the people,
we've crammed as much as we possibly can into that building.
yeah, yeah, and it shows. But at the same time, it's a really good time, and I do recommend. I mean, I didn't go last year; I went in 2022, but I'll definitely be there this year. And
yeah, it's a great time. It's funny because at the show I don't get to enjoy the show because I'm busy, running it and dealing with logistics and things. But a few weeks after the show, when I'm going through everyone's photos and videos that they took at the show, and I just see everyone having such a great time, that's the moment that I'm like, oh yeah, it's totally worth doing.
Okay. Yeah. I'll send you my video. I posted one in 2022 when I went there. So if that makes you,
I've probably watched it.
Oh, okay. All right, well, that makes 2 videos after the Game Dude analysis. So, yeah, and that's at the Anvil Center, and I don't have the address there, but I do have the address for Gamedeals, which is 407 Columbia Street, New Westminster, BC. Right outside of Columbia train station, SkyTrain station. Or, well, it's a SkyTrain station, but it's not in the sky, so.
Yeah. Downtown New West has 2 stations. Columbia is where Gamedeals is, and New West Station is where the Anvil Center is.
Yeah.
For the gaming.
So it couldn't be more accessible if you tried, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, just thank you so much. I feel like this was very productive. Not only, I mean, it did shed a lot of light on the Alex stuff, but it also this was a very productive conversation in a lot of other ways too.
Cool. Thanks for having me. It's been interesting.
Appreciate it a lot. And yeah, I'll stop recording right about now. So thanks, everybody.